Welcome to my YouTube channel, Kant here. Today we will be learning about top Python interview questions and answers. So let's start with the very first one. So here, this is going to be one of the scenario-based question. Could you share a specific example where you optimized data processing with the pandas for a memory-intensive operation? How did you manage memory constraints? So while we are trying to load a huge amount of data, it's going to be very challenging. So like there are chances of crashing your entire environment. So it's a huge amount of data. It takes a lot of time to load it. So in those cases, what exactly we can do is we are able to perform an activity called as chunking. What exactly meant by chunking is instead of loading entire data at a time, you are trying to divide the data into multiple, or we can say smaller chunks or a smaller pieces, and we are trying to load piece by piece. So by doing that, what exactly happening is we are able to keep our memory usage under control. That is one way. And the second one is data type. So ensure you are using appropriate data type. So instead of using your integer 64-bit, by using integer 32-bit even, it gonna minimize your memory footprint. And the second one is going to be the same thing, connection to your chunking. So by going with your chunking prevents excessive memory consumption. So at a time loading your data, so it's going to take a lot of memory consumption. It may be very difficult for us to go for it. For that reason, by going with chunking, we are able to manage our memory better. And not only that, in order to achieve our means like a huge amount of data, in order to load it, we need to use a concept called as multi-threading. So by using multi-threading, and we are able to leverage multiple CPU cores to speed up your computational performance. So in order to load this kind of big levels of data, we can do it. That is one. So you can, when you are trying to answer this question, you can use the combination of all the three. And the next one going to be, why are functions considered first class objects in Python? So now very simple. So now why your functions are considered first class objects in Python? So first let's understand what exactly meant by a first class object. So first class object is an entity that can be treated like any other variable. So now you can take your functions. So now the operations you are doing on your functions can be treated as treating your more like your variables. And so now the to perform operations on your functions as well, we are able to do it same like your integer, string or a list, we are able to perform them. And there are some more points as well, what exactly meant by first class object. So in simple, if you are able to perform every operation which you can do it on top of a variable or on a list or on top of an integer, the similar kind of operations, if you can do it on top of your any of other entities within your Python, we can call them as your first class object. Now within that, you got the functions in Python are first class. So why they are called as first class is we are able to assign to a variables. Means you can take a function, you can assign it to a variable just like any other object in Python. And the second one is you are able to pass a function as an argument inside another function. So you can take this function, you can pass as an argument inside another function. So same like your any other objects within your Python. And the next one is returned as a value from the function. You can define a function that returns another function out. So now you are using a particular function to return even another function out. So based on these reasons, we are able to call Python as a first class object. And the next one, so now these questions are something like we are ranging it, or I just collated them based on junior level, mid level, and the senior level roles. And there are one more area of the Python interview preparation. We can call them as Python coding challenges. I will be doing this Python coding challenges or problem solving based video, something next. After this, I'll be releasing another video on this. And next one going to be what is linting, debugging, and profiling in Python. Let's try to see linting. So linting is a process of automatically analyzing. So the linting is a process of automatically analyzing your source code to identify potential errors, stylistic issues, and suspicious constructions. So now it's more like, as we said, it's more like a spell checker for your code. If you want to do linting in your Python, you are able to use libraries like Pylint and Flake8. So by using them, you are able to perform linting. And next one, we call it as debugging. So what exactly meant by debugging is a process of identifying and fixing errors, or we can call those errors as what, bugs. So in order to do that, so like why we are trying to do debugging is, once you deployed or once you released, if it is trying to perform some sort of, so like completely different behavior or unexpected behavior, to fix that in prior, or we can say to like a prototype, or we can say proactive action, we are able to go for debugging. And in order to perform debugging, we can use PDB, which is called as Python debugger, or we can use IDE debuggers. So by based on this, we are able to perform debugging. And the next one going to be profiling. Profiling is a process of analyzing your code performance. So now you are trying to, if you want to analyze your code performance, you are able to use profiling. So now why you are analyzing your code performance? In order to understand your bottlenecks and areas for optimization of your code, to make your code better. For that, we can use C profile or line underscore profiler. By using that, you're able to perform your profiling operation. So these are the three important elements. So what is linting, debugging, and profiling? So as you are moving more towards at a professional level, these three things are a bit important. And the next one, so what are Python decorators and how are they used? So very simple. Like I'm trying to, or I'll be just going with the definition. So decorators are a way to modify. So now one more small tip. So like here, while I'm explaining all these questions, I'm just taking a question and I'm trying to explain an answer. But in your interviews, try to follow star method. Don't try to explain like a definition. Try to explain a star method. So take a decorator. So what is the situation? What is the task they allocated? And what is your approach and what is the result? So now what is the situation to use your decorators? Or what is the situation to use your linting? Or what is the situation to use debugging or to use profiling? So now whatever the topics I'm just trying to show here, try to explain them in a star method. So giving a scenario, don't just explain like a definition. So now for your understanding sake, I'm explaining it like a definition, but don't explain it like a definition. Try to explain like a star method, that would be good. And I will be taking another, means like after coding challenges on Python, the another video means like going to be primarily on how to explain each and every Python interview question with a star method. I'll be doing one or two questions so that you're gonna get some idea. Decorators are a way to modify. So why we are using decorators? To modify the behavior of functions. So I want to modify the behavior of how a function is performing. So in order to do that, so what we are doing, now we are using decorators. But if I'm changing the behavior of a function, I need to change the overall core logic. But if I change a core logic, the entire performance or the entire purpose of that function changes. But the goal of decorator is not to change your core logic. Without changing the core logic, I want to change the behavior of a function. For that, I will be using what? Decorators. And here you are able to see why we are using decorators. Decorators are used for tasks such as, again here, before that. So they are essentially functions that take another function. In simple, what exactly we are doing in a decorator? Your decorator is nothing but a function which is trying to take another function as an input and return a modified version of that function. So now what exactly it is doing? It is a function which is taking function as an input, and after modifying the function, it is returning the particular function outside. So that's what we are trying to do with. That's what the purpose of your decorators. And decorators can be used for logging, it is used for timing, it is used for authorization. Now one simple example of decorators, if you see this code, now what exactly I'm doing is, I want to get, for example, the numbers. For example, here if you see, I'm just saying get number and I'm trying to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is able to just give me the value as 3. And even, sorry, you can't see this here. If you notice, I'm trying to say get number. When I'm saying get number, it is trying to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I said get number, it is trying to give 3. How it is giving 3? If you look here on the top, so now it is trying to use a particular logic here. So it is trying to calculate a mean. Indirectly, it is trying to calculate a mean. Now, when I'm provided all that values, it is trying to calculate a mean, but And when I'm saying get number, now this part is your decorator. So the calculate mean going to be your decorator, which is helping us to preserve the logic why. Now, in order to calculate the mean, I'm not calling calculate underscore mean function, but I'm trying to calculate this get number function. So now what exactly decorator is doing, which is a function which is taking function as an input, and based on that it is trying to change the behavior of that particular function but not the logic. And if you are able to look here, when I'm just trying to say get number, I'm unable to see the source code how this get number is behaving. So now we are trying to authorize it, or we are trying to protect the particular code which someone has written. So now the logic is unveiled here, so we cannot see the logic. We can just see when I'm just at get number, it is saying return list of numbers, but there is no logic inside it. We cannot find it. In order to get the logic, I need to use calculate mean. So that's how we are able to use decorators for authorization, for logging, for timing. We are able to use decorators. That is one way. So you can give a try of decorators whenever you find some time. Give a try on decorators. And the next one going to be, how can you replace string space with a given character? Very simple. You are trying to take a character like hello world, which is a string. And by using the string manipulation replace, so this is going to be your space, you are trying to replace it with underscore. As simple as that. You can use replace method to replace spaces in a string with a given character. For example, to replace spaces with underscore, this is how the syntax follows. So in this way, we can use even a string manipulation. Another one going to be, why is version control important for developers? So now if you are working as a software developer, or if you are trying to work as anything, if you are trying to do CI CD pipeline, continuous integration and continuous deployment, if you want to do it, obviously we need to go for version controlling. So now why version controlling is very important? Take our phone as an example. So, or even instead of making it very big, now version control systems such as Git are essential for collaborative software development. They allow developers to track changes to the code, collaborate on projects, and revert to previous versions if needed. And there is no dependency of the human. So now, what I mean by dependency of the human is, I have written a code in my VS Code, and I just pushed it into the Git or a GitHub, and people who are connected with that particular repository, so they can look at the code, they can make the corrections based on the access they have it, and if everything is good, they are able to push it. Again, the testing team going to test the entire code, and based on that, they are able to. In this way, we are able to perform the entire software development life cycle without a human dependency. Means human dependency is the code is with one person in his laptop until this guy share it. He's not having a code. So on live, as the code is changing, they are able to look at the changes with the help of our version control codes. And even one of the example, as I said, our phones. So now as you're using current version, as you're using current software, they keep on developing a newer version, they keep on modifying a newer version. Once it is good without any errors, everything is good, they try to release it to the users. So that's what they are doing. Now, version controlling is very important. If you are with Python, if you want to do version controlling on data science or machine learning projects or etc., then you need to better use than Jupyter Notebook. You need to go with VS Code, or you need to use PyCharm, or you need to use Atom. This kind of IDEs are very important for performing version controlling operations. So, very simple. The version controlling is whatever the code you have written, and to track the different versions of the same code, and to collaborate with multiple people. Means in a project you may not have one people, you will be having multiple. For that, version controlling is very important, like GitHub. And how does Python manages memory? So it's a very simple answer. So Python means like manages your memory with reference counting and garbage collection. So this is another one. And again, if you are trying to explain it, take a scenario like a star method and try to do it. And this is one small example of what our next class going to be. This is a very small example. So hey, write a program to find the sum of all numbers in a list. But we will be having various. You will be having Fibonacci series. You will be having palindrome. In this way, there are different. What is that? your coding questions which are most frequently asked. We'll be going through them on the next. So write a program to find the sum of all numbers in a list. So now they try to give you a coding test where they try to give you the question and example, how the output need to look like, how the input need to look like, and you need to just come up with a code written very quick. Within 1 or 2 minutes you need to write down a code which going to be Python coding challenges. And next one going to be, how do you debug a Python program? Very simple. You need to use a print statement, inserting print statement to display the values of variables at different points in the code. That is one way. And using logging module to record events and errors, and using PDB, as I said, like Python debugger, to step through the code, set breakpoints and inspect variables. We are able to perform debugging with these three different steps. And finally, when you are trying to prepare, so now for your interviews, so like you need to follow like certain tips. So before we are going with certain tips, let's try to see one more small question which is called as, so why indentation in Python? So unlike many programming languages that use curly braces, so for example, now what exactly Python is doing, instead of using curly braces, they are using, so now to define a code block, so other programming languages using curly braces, but Python uses indentation. So now indentation of four spaces. So Python uses four spaces to make sure that this entire code written within this indentation is related to one particular code block. So in order to relate entire code block to one, we follow indentations in Python. So by following indentation, the code look clean, the code look mind-blowing and easy to understand and all that. So now mostly we use indentations for the code is grouped and structured format in simple. And finally, how to prepare for your interviews, try to understand the fundamentals. So while you're preparing for your Python interviews, try to prepare for your fundamentals, like try to prepare for your core Python concepts such as data types, control flow, functions, object oriented programming, and etc. And practice the coding challenges. So try to take hacker rank or a lead code. And the coding challenges are started from the very basic, so you can take very basic level and you can start practicing every day hacker rank and coding challenges like a Sudoku puzzle. You need to keep on practicing them so that you can understand the Python code. If you see understanding the fundamentals, you are able to easily grab Python code. If you see a code, you can understand it. But you lack at writing down the code. In order to write down the code, you need to develop logic and you need to develop problem solving. Logic and problem solving cannot be taught in a single level or in an easy format. So we can give tips and we can share how exactly to approach a problem. But end of the day, logical thinking and problem solving going to be matured as you keep on solving multiple coding challenges and multiple coding challenges. For that, try to take hacker rank or lead code and try to perform various coding challenges. So now in order to tune your problem solving skills and become more comfortable with your Python syntax, and know your libraries. So like they may ask, if you are targeting data analytic interview or data science interview, they may start asking questions from libraries. So familiarize yourself with Python libraries like NumPy, Pandas, scikit-learn. Especially if you are targeting for data analytic, data science kind of interviews, they focus on your libraries. And visualize the problem whenever they are trying to give a coding problem, especially those involving data structures like trees, graphs, matrices, consider drawing diagram to visualize the problem and your solution. So how to approach your particular solution. So try to come up with visualizing it, drawing it, and once you have drawn that, based on that, try to code it. So now directly if you jump into the coding, so you may end up in failure of that or you may make mistakes. So if you draw it, the things going to be sorted out in the brain. Based on that, you can start writing down the particular code. And these are some more tips which you can follow. Explain your thought process. So while you are trying to explain to your interviewers, so explain your thought process. So whatever the questions we have, why you selected profiling or why you selected, for example, debugging. So clearly communicate your reasoning and approach to problem solving. Interviewers often value your thought process more than the final answer, whether you are getting a right solution or not. So you may make mistake in the syntax or you may make mistake in defining certain indentations or certain certain variables here and there, so up and down. So based on that, you may miss some of the answers, but your thought process makes a proper meaning. So the interviewers actually care for your thought process, how he's thinking, what is his approach to solve a particular problem. That is more important. So try to focus on your thought process, and then ask clarifying question. So for example, now they asked a question which you cannot actually understand or you missed it. Don't just bluff it up or don't just try to make up an answer around it, but so try to ask a question. So clarify whatever they asked it. So try to clarify. So by clarifying, and even the interviewer is going to understand you based on the questions you are asking, based on means like based on the quality of your questions. So they're going to understand whether you are really good at logic or not. They're going to understand it. So don't hesitate to ask clarifying questions if any aspect of the question is unclear. So this demonstrate your attention to detail and analytical thinking. So when you are unclear with the question, by asking it, it is triggering attention to detail in your interview. Hey, interviewer feels, hey, this guy is having a lot of clarity. He's not feeling shy to ask the questions which he is unable to understand. Why? Even in the clients, in the real time, we need to ask the clients. If you are unable to get what they are expecting, we need to ask why. If you are unable to understand, if you solve it, either you are solving a project above the scope or below the scope. So you are not exactly meeting the scope of the project. So meeting the scope of the project is very important. For that, try to clarify your questions so that the interviewer going to feel he's having a good attention to detail and analytical thinking. Be prepared to discuss your projects. So be ready to talk about your past projects and how you utilized Python to solve real world problems. So they don't want to just know about learning Python or how you learned Python. They want to be more curious about how you used Python to solve certain real world problems. So by solving real world problems, what is the value they are able to gain it? So that's very, very important. And leverage Python strengths like utilize Python built-in functions and standard libraries to write efficient and Pythonic code. For example, use list comprehension for concise list creation, enumerate for efficient iteration and collection. So mostly try to, that is for a pro level. Again, if you, so try to leverage your Python inbuilt stuff in order to write down your major functions, etc. That going to build a lot of means like performance in your day-to-day work. So these are some of the tips which you can follow while you're preparing for your Python interviews and And if you like this pattern of the video, if you have more questions around it, please share your views in the comment section below. And if you want more videos around it, please do share your views in the comment section below. And if you like this, please do like it, share it, and please do subscribe. Thank you so much for giving your valuable time and going through all this video. Thank you so much.